Ever catch yourself like daydreaming about a big purchase,
Right.
like that vacation you've been wanting or a new car, and then bam, you're yanked back to reality. Like, wait a minute, can I even afford this?
It's the worst, right?
The worst. But hey, that's why we're here today. This deep dive is all about facing those money anxieties head on. We've got this stack of budgeting resources, and we're going to uncover some surprisingly practical advice to help you, the listener, take control.
I am excited to dig in. What I found really interesting is how these sources, they kind of reframe this whole idea of budgeting. It's
Yeah.
not about like restriction. It's more about alignment, aligning your spending with what you truly value.
Ooh, I like that. So it's less about saying no to everything and
Yeah.
more about saying yes to the things that really matter.
Precisely. And to figure out what those priorities are, we got to start with this clear picture of where our money's actually going.
Hmm.
That's where this whole personal budget thing comes in, right? It's like a plan for your money, your income, your expenses, usually mapped out on a month-to-month basis.
Okay, so that makes sense. But, the sources mention these common budgeting pitfalls. What are some of those traps we should watch out for?
Oh, there are so many.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest ones, neglecting to factor in those less frequent expenses.
Okay, yeah.
So we budget for like our regular bills,
Right.
rent, utilities,
Yeah.
but then those annual insurance payments or those holiday shopping sprees,
Yeah.
they kind of pop up out of nowhere.
Totally.
And then suddenly we're thrown off course.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. It's like those expenses, they have this way of just sneaking up on you.
Exactly. One expert actually suggested creating like a dedicated irregular expenses category in your budget
Oh, smart.
and just setting aside a small amount each month.
So you're prepared.
Yeah. Think of it as padding that financial safety net.
So instead of being caught off guard, we're being proactive about those bigger expenses.
That's a great tip.
I
I
never
like that a lot. Now, I've heard that budgeting can help reduce financial stress, which, I mean, come on, that's like a huge win in itself, right?
Yeah. So what are some other benefits? I'm curious what these sources highlight.
So one of the most significant benefits, and this is something these sources emphasize like repeatedly, it's the sense of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you are aware of where your money's going, you're empowered to make these like conscious spending choices that align with what you value.
It's like you're in the driver's seat of your financial journey, right?
Yes.
You're not just like along for the ride.
Exactly. And with that control, right, comes
Yeah.
this greater sense of security and peace of mind. You know what I mean? You're not constantly worried about money because you've got a plan.
That peace of mind alone.
All right.
Just that sounds incredibly valuable. But I imagine budgeting can also help people actually achieve their financial goals.
Totally.
Not just worry about money less.
Yeah, and this is where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah.
One source, they highlighted this study that found this strong correlation between budgeting and achieving financial goals, like homeownership or early retirement.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about like surviving financially, it's about actually thriving
Yeah.
and like pursuing those bigger dreams.
Exactly. It's about aligning your money with your aspirations. And speaking of aspirations, these sources all seem to agree that setting smart financial goals is crucial.
Okay, I've heard of SMART goals,
Oh, yeah.
but like, a quick refresher never hurts.
Of course. Of course.
What does SMART stand for again?
Okay, so SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay.
Let's break that down a bit.
Yeah.
Instead of this vague goal like save more money, a SMART goal would be something like save $5,000 for a down payment on a condo in the next 2 years.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see the difference?
Yeah, I see the difference. It's about getting like crystal clear on what you want to achieve and then actually creating a realistic roadmap to get there.
Yes.
I like it.
Love it. Now let's dive into the first step of actually creating your budget. Yeah. Understanding your income.
Okay, that seems like the logical starting point, but is it really as simple as just like looking at our paychecks?
Not quite. One expert pointed out this mistake people make.
Uh-oh.
They budget based on their gross income, not their net income.
Ah, okay. Right. So it's about how much we actually take home after taxes and deductions, not just that initial number on our paycheck.
Exactly. So before you start allocating funds to like different categories and stuff, you need a firm grasp on that actual available income.
Makes perfect sense. Now let's talk about those categories. This is where it starts to feel real.
Right.
Breaking down where our money actually goes each month.
Yeah, it can feel a bit daunting at first, you
Mm.
know, but one source offered this like really helpful analogy.
Okay.
Imagine your income is this river, right,
Okay.
flowing into a lake.
Okay.
Your expenses are the streams flowing out of that lake.
Got it.
Budgeting helps you control the flow of those streams so the lake doesn't dry up.
I love that analogy. It makes budgeting feel less like a chore and more like, well, I'm managing this like beautiful ecosystem.
Exactly. And just like in an ecosystem, balance is key.
Right.
To achieve that balance, we got to categorize our expenses.
Okay.
The sources typically break them down into three main buckets: fixed, variable, and discretionary.
Okay, so let's unpack those categories a bit.
Yeah.
Fixed expenses, those are the like non-negotiables, right?
Right, exactly.
Per month.
Yeah, these are the expenses that stay like relatively consistent from month to month, like
Yeah.
your rent or your mortgage payments, car payments, student loan payments, that kind of thing.
Okay. Those are fixed for sure.
Yep.
Then there are the variable expenses, the ones that like keep us on our toes a little bit.
Yes.
What are some common examples from the sources?
So think about things like groceries,
Okay.
utilities, transportation costs,
Makes sense.
even things like clothing or entertainment.
Oh, okay.
Those are areas where, we have some flexibility to adjust our spending.
Okay, so being mindful of those variable expenses is key. And lastly, we have the discretionary expenses.
Yes.
These are the fun ones, right?
Well, they can be fun. They can be
Yeah.
a little dangerous.
Right.
Discretionary expenses are the things we choose to spend money on,
Okay.
like dining out, travel, hobbies, or those impulse purchases that can sometimes derail a budget.
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there with those impulse purchases.
For sure.
But, having them categorized like this makes it easier to at least see where we might be able to cut back if needed.
100%. Yeah. And one source even recommended this fun exercise.
Okay.
Track your discretionary spending for like a week
Okay.
and then analyze it at the end of the week.
Okay.
You might be surprised to see where your money's actually going.
That's a great idea. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, it's illuminating.
Now, once we have a clear picture of our income and expenses, it's time for that crucial reality check moment, right?
Yeah.
Comparing the two. What are some tips from the sources for making sure our expenses aren't outweighing our income?
So one expert recommended using a visual representation, like a pie chart.
Okay.
You allocate a slice of the pie to each spending category.
Gotcha.
If your expense slices are eating up that entire pie, or even worse, exceeding it,
Right.
it's a clear sign that some adjustments need to be made.
That's a great visual, though.
Right.
It's really easy to see how quickly those slices can add up.
Totally.
But what if we find ourselves in that situation?
Yeah.
Expenses outweighing income, it's easy to feel overwhelmed at that point.
One of the sources emphasized that this is not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about optimization.
Okay.
Look for areas where you can, trim the fat without sacrificing your well-being.
So maybe brewing your coffee at home instead of
Yeah.
hitting the coffee shop every day. Or, I don't know, exploring free or low-cost entertainment options instead of those expensive outings.
Yes, love it.
Things like that.
Exactly. And this is where those discretionary expenses, they become particularly important.
Yeah.
They offer the most flexibility for making adjustments.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be real, tracking every single expense
That's a lot.
can feel tedious.
It can be, yeah.
Are there any tools or strategies these sources recommend to simplify the process?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of them are into budgeting apps these days,
Yeah.
like Mint, Personal Capital, or Every Dollar.
Okay.
These apps, they can sync with your bank accounts and credit cards,
Really?
automatically categorizing your transactions,
Wow.
and even sending you alerts when you're approaching your budget limits.
That sounds like a game changer, honestly,
Uh-huh.
especially for someone like me who's not exactly a spreadsheet enthusiast.
Right.
But even with the best budgeting apps, I imagine it's still important to check in regularly,
Oh, yeah.
make sure things are on track.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those monthly reviews we talked about earlier, those are key for really staying on top of things.
100%. Think of it like tending a garden.
Okay.
Like you wouldn't just plant your seeds and walk away, right?
Yep.
You got to
Yeah.
water them, you got to weed them, and, make adjustments as needed.
I love that analogy. It's about nurturing those financial goals.
Yes.
Making sure they're actually thriving.
Precisely. Yeah. And speaking of goals,
Yeah.
one source offered this really interesting perspective on budgeting methods.
Okay.
It said that the, quote, best method
Okay.
isn't this one-size-fits-all approach, but rather the one that best aligns with your personality and your goals.
Okay, so it's personalized, you're saying.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so let's, I guess, dive into those methods.
Yeah, yeah.
We briefly touched on the 50-30-20 method earlier, which seems like a great starting point for folks.
Yeah.
Can you remind us how that one works?
Yeah, so with the 50-30-20 method, you allocate 50% of your after-tax income to, like, needs, 30% to wants,
Oh, yeah.
and 20% to savings and debt repayment.
Gotcha.
It's a pretty simple framework. It
Yeah.
can be easily customized.
Right, because those percentages, those are really just a guideline, right?
Totally.
Like if someone has higher housing costs or something, they might adjust those percentages.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, for those who like prefer a more, I guess, like granular approach, would zero-based budgeting be a good fit?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What is that one again?
So zero-based budgeting, it's all about giving every dollar a job,
Okay.
making sure your spending aligns with your priorities.
So instead of those like broad categories,
Yeah.
you're getting like really specific
Very specific.
about where each dollar is allocated.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
It takes a bit more upfront work,
Okay.
but can be incredibly effective for those who, like, want a very high level of control over their finances.
Okay, and then there's the envelope system.
Yes.
Which I feel like is perfect for like visual learner.
Yeah, for sure.
Like me.
Yeah.
How does that one work again?
So the envelope system, it's great for those who like to see their budget in action.
Okay.
You literally, like, divide your cash into different envelopes labeled with spending categories.
Okay, so like if you allocate $200 for groceries,
Yeah.
you put $200 in an envelope labeled groceries,
Exactly.
and once it's gone, it's gone.
100%. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
very, like, tangible way to track your spending and avoid overspending in specific categories.
I like it. Okay.
It's very visual. Yeah.
Now I got to ask about this last method, the one for the like tech-savvy folks out there,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
the daily tracking method.
So this one involves, like, consistently tracking every single purchase you make.
Every single one.
Pretty much, yeah. Often through a budgeting app or, like, a spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
It gives you that, like, real-time snapshot of your financial situation.
So if you're someone who like, you know, really likes to stay on top of their finances like day to day, that method might be a good fit.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, and the beauty of all these is like you can kind of combine them, I imagine.
Yeah. You make one that works for you.
Create a hybrid that like really fits your lifestyle.
Exactly. It's about finding what resonates with you, your personality, your lifestyle.
For sure. Yeah. And, you know, before we wrap up, I did want to touch on a couple more insights from the sources that I found super helpful. One expert emphasized the importance of automating your savings.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because it's really easy to overspend when you have to, like, manually transfer money to savings each month.
Totally.
Setting up those automatic transfers,
Yes.
it ensures that you're, like, constantly prioritizing your savings goals
Okay.
without even thinking about it.
It's already done.
Exactly. And then finally, the sources, they highlighted the importance of celebrating your wins.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, no matter how small.
It's easy to get, like, bogged down
Right.
in all the, like, nitty-gritty of budgeting.
For sure.
But celebrating those milestones
Yes.
can really help you stay motivated for the long haul. 100%. Absolutely, yeah. Whether it's hitting a savings target or finally paying off that credit card,
Yes.
take the time to, like, acknowledge and appreciate your progress.
This deep dive has been honestly like incredibly eye-opening.
Oh.
It's really amazing how much like these practical tips,
Right.
these insights, they can really change our perspective on budgeting.
For sure, yeah.
It doesn't have to be this like scary thing.
It's not about restriction.
Yeah.
It's about empowerment.
Okay.
It's about aligning our money with our values
Yes.
and creating this financial future that, like, truly supports our dreams.
Beautifully said. I love that.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with this thought to ponder.
Okay.
What small shift can you make today to gain more control over your finances?
I love that.
Maybe it's downloading a budgeting app, automating your savings, or simply like reflecting on your spending habits.
Yes.
Every step you take brings you closer to financial well-being. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.